everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk, and my name is John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about 1991's The Silence of the Lambs, and its Criterion Blu-ray and Kino Lorber 4K Blu-ray, and I'm going to let you guys know which version of that is the best and which one of those is worth your time and money. But before we dive into those reviews, we're going to talk a little bit about the film, because The Silence of the Lambs is one of the most famous films ever made. It is one of the only films to ever sweep the Oscars to win Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Picture, and Best Director. So not many films can say that, and it's also one of the only films to ever do it that is a horror film, the only horror film to win Best Picture. But it is debated, is this a horror film or is this more of a thriller? I like to think it's a little bit of both. It definitely has some horror aspects to it, but it moves along like a thriller. So The Silence of the Lambs was originally released back in 1991. It is directed by Jonathan Demme, a fellow Long Islander like myself. Jonathan Demme before this is probably most known for the concert film about the talking heads, Stop Making Sense, and Married to the Mob with Michelle Pfeiffer. But originally this film was supposed to be directed by Gene Hackman and starring Gene Hackman as Jack Crawford. In the final film, that role would be played by Scott Glenn amazingly. But Gene Hackman actually bought half of the rights with the studio. He spent $250,000 of his own money to have the rights to the 1988 novel by Thomas Harris, who also wrote the original book, Red Dragon. That was the first one that featured Hannibal Lecter, and that book had already been adapted into Manhunter that was released, I believe, in 1987, directed by Michael Mann, and that one stars William Peterson and also features Hannibal Lecter, but this time played by, in his American film debut, Brian Cox, who also does a pretty damn good job in that movie. And that movie would actually be remade called Red Dragon, but I still think Manhunter is a much better movie, and Manhunter itself is a very underrated film. I absolutely love Manhunter. It's got all the 1980s Michael Mann stuff in there, you know, that Miami Vice feel. Everything is so colorful and so vibrant. Very different from The Silence of the Lambs. Manhunter is very much a product of the 1980s, where you can argue that Silence of the Lambs is very much a product of the 1990s. As we start to fall from that excess, the colorful world that the 1980s were, then we go into the 90s when everything starts to get darker, grungier, grittier, and The Silence of the Lambs is a very dark and gritty movie. Of course it is. We're dealing with serial killers. Ted Levine's Buffalo Bill is one of the worst out there. And Jack Crawford decides to send in a trainee to help figure out what the hell is going on. Maybe pick the brain of Hannibal Lecter, one of the world's worst serial killers that we've ever got. And you can't really pick this guy's brain because he was a psychiatrist himself. In this movie, it's played by Anthony Hopkins. And at the time, when he won the Best Actor, it was for the least amount of screen time in film history. He really isn't a lead character in this movie, despite winning Best Actor. He's really there to support Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, who does a phenomenal job in this movie. She really wanted to play this role so bad. She was really going for it. Jonathan Demme had just worked with Michelle Pfeiffer, and he wanted to have her in the lead role. You know, I could see it in a way, but I feel like the way Michelle Pfeiffer acts, I always felt like she kind of has like this mysterious way about her, where Jodie Foster is playing this character like a real go-getter. She wants to prove herself, but she's also not going to get taken advantage of. She's very strong. She knows how to control a room, despite being a woman surrounded by all these men all the time, and they make sure to illustrate that to you in this film very, very well, whether it be the scene where she gets in the elevator, or the scene where she kind of gets left out by Crawford and she's in the room with all the cops. You know, to overcome that and then command the room again after that scene is really incredible, and that's what Jodie Foster brings to the table. I couldn't really imagine anyone else in this movie except for possibly Holly Hunter. I feel like the voice that Jodie Foster is doing in this movie, that accent.
You were telling me the truth back in Baltimore, sir. Please continue now.
It's just very much a natural Holly Hunter voice, and Holly Hunter plays strong characters as well.
Try, you'll do it! Do it! Or I'll fry your fat asses still. Goodbye!
I could see her character from Broadcast News eventually developing into this character, but I still don't want to take anything away from Jodie Foster. She does a phenomenal job as Clarice Starling in this movie, but obviously Anthony Hopkins steals the show. As much as I like Brian Cox in Manhunter, you could not match up to what Anthony Hopkins does in this movie, bringing that certain intellectual quality to this character, but also somebody who can just not control himself. He has to kill people. He has to eat people. That's deep down inside of him, despite being somebody who knows everything. He knows how to dig deep into your mind, so don't try and play a trick on him, because he's just going to turn it around on you, and you are not going to be walking away from that conversation the same person that you went into it.
Senator, just one more thing. Love your suit.
And that's why you keep him in this crazy looking plexiglass jail cell down at the bottom of the institution, with the worst of the worst, with those gothic sets that they built for this movie. I mean, that's another thing. This movie is so uniquely shot beautifully, incredibly. Jonathan Demme loves to get his close-ups, put the camera right in front of the actor. He did this in this movie, he did this in Philadelphia, but you can see it throughout all of his films, how he just loves to have the actor get as close to the camera as possible and basically put the viewer, us, as the person talking to them. So if Jodie Foster's talking to the character, we're in Anthony Hopkins' shoots, and then if they do it in the reverse, you notice this most in the scene where they kind of put Hannibal Lecter in this makeshift jail cell in a gym, and the way that the camera's slowly moving in on Jodie Foster, then we switch back and it's slowly moving in on Anthony Hopkins, just setting in that dread and terror. It is all done so well. This movie is just phenomenally acted, directed. There is almost no flaw in this film. This is a 10 out of 10 movie for me. The only flaw I actually have, and it's a very minor complaint, at the very end of this movie when we kind of get that night vision goggles scene, I personally don't enjoy that. It doesn't really fit in with the rest of this movie where it kind of becomes this cat and mouse horror versus slasher villain type of scene. It's very short and it's not really that bad, but for me personally, that scene just sticks out as being the worst scene that I really just kind of wanted it to be over. I knew how it was going to end. I mean, I know what it's trying to go for with as far as building tension and dread of, is Jodie Foster going to get the best of Ted Levine's character? And you're really there sitting there at the edge of your seat. Now, for me personally, I just don't feel that during that scene. Every other scene, I feel like, especially building up the tension and dread, works a lot better in this movie, better than that night vision goggle scene. I think that night vision goggle scene is just more of showing off the effects that they were able to do with this movie. I mean, this movie, again, is edited incredibly as well. There's really just not many flaws in this movie. I just absolutely enjoy this movie from start to finish. It's one that I was able to actually, because I was doing this review, I was able to watch this movie 2 weeks in a row on the 4K on the Criterion Blu-ray, and I really just had a great time with this movie, and it really just cements to me what I already knew, which is that this is one of my top 20 favorite films of all time. I absolutely love this movie, and if you guys haven't seen The Silence of the Lambs, because I didn't actually see this movie until I was a senior in high school, saw it for the first time in school. I had always heard that this was one of the scariest movies ever made, and then when I finally caught up to it, it's not one of the scariest movies ever made, but damn, it is one of the best movies ever made. So you're doing yourself a horrible disservice if you haven't checked out The Silence of the Lambs. Yes, if you're one of those people that gets squeamish dealing with serial killers and just seeing a lot of like just grotesque stuff, that's all really in here, but not really like what other movies like The Terrifier 2, movies like that out in the world now. This is nothing like that. This is a little bit more mainstream horror thriller. It's definitely got scenes that are going to make you uncomfortable, but not scenes that are going to make you crawl out of your skin and leave the theater or leave your living room or whatever just disgusted. That's not going to happen with this movie. You're going to enjoy this movie, but there is definitely some scenes where you look at it and you might like turn your head a little bit. You might get a little bit squeamish, but nothing too over the top. This was probably a little bit more grotesque back in 1991. But in 2023, I can honestly say that this is something you don't have to really worry about when it comes to those scenes. You're just going to get wrapped up in the thriller and the mystery of this film and finding Buffaloville, which again, just before we move on to the Blu-ray and 4K review, Ted Levine does a phenomenal job in this movie. Wait, was she a great big fat person? I mean, that scene shouldn't draw a laugh out of me, but the way Ted Levine delivers that line with that stupid smirk on his face is just perfect. Can't really take anything away from it. Everybody is just bringing their A game to this movie. But it's also time for us to talk about this 4K Blu-ray and the Criterion Blu-ray, and we're going to let you know which one of those is the best. And if you do enjoy videos like this, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We try and give you videos and podcasts every single day, and the best way to just support this channel is just by liking the video and subscribing to the channel.
The darkest of all minds.
So Kino Lorber is having their fall sale right now, and I had already had the Criterion collection of The Silence of the Lambs, and I decided to grab the 4K Blu-ray from Kino Lorber and see if there was an upgrade to it. Well, unfortunately, I have to say that the Criterion Blu-ray is the better version overall. Now, this version does have some better aspects to it. Mainly the problem is that the Criterion 2018 Blu-ray comes from a brand new scan at the time. Criterion has put this out many different times. This is actually spine number 13 for them, so it's very early in their collection. So they have re-released this numerous times, but they have all the bells and whistles when it comes to extras. They have a 1994 commentary track with Jonathan Demme on here. They got 4 featurettes, really diving into the making of this movie. Plenty of interviews, deleted scenes, outtakes, which I love the outtakes for this just because this movie is, you know, it's not funny at all when you're watching it. So it's to see these serious actors and characters just breaking is actually really, really funny, especially Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster. You know, there's a good one in there with Scott Glenn as well. I didn't bring him up too much much, but Scott Glenn is one of the most underrated character actors we have. If you ever seen Silverado, you know what I'm talking about. But Scott Glenn always brings his A game, and that one outtake with him is absolutely hysterical. Now, the only problem with that is you get all those bells and whistles. You get all that also on the Kino Lorber 4K. The Kino Lorber 4K is actually missing some of the extras that are on the Criterion Collection, but it does have most of them, all the documentaries, outtakes, deleted scenes, TV spots, all of that. It's just this one has a different commentary track in comparison to the commentary track on this. So your mileage may vary on which version you want to see. And both of these are also 2-disc sets. So if you come inside this one, you take the slipcover off. Really nice slipcover. I still would have preferred them using the original box art that they used to use on the VHS or DVD. This is kind of like a reimagining that in a certain way. You come inside. So it's Kino Lorber, so they have their own individual disc design. Nothing really too special. It's just black and gray. But I've always appreciated that. One thing about Kino Lorber, I bring it up in all my Kino Lorber reviews, is all their stuff looks very uniform. So when you put them all together on their shelf, it makes you want to buy all the Kino Lorber 4K Blu-rays. It's very similar like what Shout Factory and Scream Factory do, how they have their own, bind design, and it all looks so good on your shelf that you want to buy them all just to keep them all together and be like, hey, this is my Kino Lorber 4K collection. Look at them all. They look gorgeous, don't they? Very different from like what Criterion does, which has its own unique design, but it kind of individualizes it to show off like what makes this film unique. It's got its own art design. I love what they did with this one. Black, red, and white is probably my favorite color combination, so I was really glad with what they did with this. This one, you slide it off. It's kind of creates this whole thing right here. You come inside, you get a nice bit of paperwork, good paper stock. It's Criterion, so you know it's good. This is also a 2-disc set. So you get the film on one disc, and then you get all the extras on the second disc. Now, the audio tracks are exactly the same on both of these. You got a new 2.0 mono track that was included on the Criterion Blu-ray, because I actually had the previous 2009 MGM Blu-ray, and that only had the DTS HD 5.1 track, which is available on both this Kino Lorber 4K and the Criterion Blu-ray. But there is a new mono track that was made available for the 2018 Blu-ray that you could also have on the Kino Lorber 4K Blu-ray. So those are your two choices as far as audio tracks go. They're both pretty damn good. Nothing too special though, but I still think that they're both really good. This DTS HD 5.1 has been following the film around for a long time, but it is a good, well-mixed track. The dialogue is not mixed too low. Everything is mixed very, very well. You can set your volume at one thing. It's a dialogue-heavy movie, but I do absolutely love the score to this movie. It's actually very haunting and works very well with the film, but it all just sounds really, really good coming out of your speakers. So I can honestly say both audio tracks, whichever one you choose to use, are good. You're not going to be disappointed by that. But the visuals, that's what everyone came here to find out. Is it a better transfer than the original Criterion Blu-ray? Well, it's using the exact same source. So Kino Lorber is using the Criterion scan, that 4K scan, and they just added Dolby Vision and HDR10 over it. It creates a mixed bag, to be honest with you. I actually think that the Criterion Blu-ray is overall better. Now, there are certain scenes because of the HDR and Dolby Vision that look better in 4K, but I just think overall, because the HDR is over everything, there's certain scenes that look just so much better on the Criterion Blu-ray in comparison to the Kino Lorber 4K. Mainly the scenes when we're down in the basement of the prison and we're seeing Hannibal Lecter on his side across the plexiglass, and then we're cutting back to Jodie Foster on the other side. On the 4K Blu-ray, that almost looks a little bit too gray. The colors are just not deep enough. The blacks are just not deep enough on the 4K in comparison to the Blu-ray, and I think that's just because the HDR is over everything, and where it's over everything throughout the entire film, a lot of the day shots, the interiors, especially like at the funeral home, all that stuff looks better on the 4K than it does on the Blu-ray, but because you have HDR and Dolby Vision over the entire film, it makes certain scenes look washed out and just kind of bad, to be 100% honest with you. So overall, I have to say that I give the visuals over to the Criterion Blu-ray despite not having Dolby Vision or HDR10 or having that resolution bump. I don't think you're going to really notice the resolution bump too much because it is the same scan and they just really added HDR and Dolby Vision over it. So you're not going to really notice that too much. It's just certain scenes are going to look better on the Kino Lorber 4K while certain scenes are going to look better on the Criterion Blu-ray. So it's a real mixed bag as far as that goes. So then it's really just going to come down to the packaging, and Criterion has, I think, the superior packaging. But I think whatever version of this you have right now, say you have the Criterion Blu-ray, there's absolutely no reason for you to upgrade to the Kino Lorber 4K Blu-ray, but it's also vice versa. If you have that Kino Lorber 4K Blu-ray, I don't see a reason for you to upgrade and maybe in your mind downgrade to the Criterion Blu-ray, because they are the same exact scan. There's not too many differences. You're getting the same audio track, pretty much the same exact extras. So either way, whichever version of this you have is still really, really good. Don't feel like you have to run out and get the other version to have everything. Yes, you'll have everything that way, but it's really not enough for me to justify the prices of these. definitely stick with what you got. It still looks good either way. It sounds good either way. You got plenty of extras, which is really good for a film like this that you really want to dive into, because it does have a very fascinating making of documentaries out there. Just diving into what it took to make this film and bring it to the big screen, and then, you know, sweeping the Oscars like that. It's one of the most fascinating films ever made, and it's one of the best films ever made. I'd give the film a 10 out of 10, and I don't think you can go wrong either way. Maybe that's cheating. If I was going to give it the slightest of slight edges, I would give it to the Criterion Blu-ray. If I didn't have either of these, my personal choice would be the Criterion Blu-ray, because A, it's in the Criterion collection. You're going to get that special Criterion packaging, but you really can't go wrong either way. And now let's kick it over to future John with this week's Digital Code Giveaway. And that is correct, Past John. It's Monday, and that means it's time for us to pick our 2 winners of the Digital Code Giveaway. So in Friday's video, which was the video Stop Making Sense review, I asked you guys 2 digital code giveaway questions. All you had to do was answer one of those questions in the comment section below, and as long as you did that, you came back to this Monday's video, this video right here. We put your name on a magic wheel. We spun that wheel 2 times. The 2 names that it landed on, they have their choice of the digital codes that you've seen on your screen before you today. And I asked you guys, you know, we were diving a little bit into music, kind of diving into your personal lives a little bit. I want to know, what was your favorite band? And most people kind of picked the Beatles, which isn't really surprising, and I felt really guilty I didn't tell you guys in the comments section, but I'm not a big Beatles fan. I appreciate the Beatles. There is no debate that the Beatles are the greatest band to ever walk this earth. But for me, they're just not personally my taste. I actually kind of prefer Paul McCartney and John Lennon's solo work in comparison to their Beatles work, but I cannot deny that the Beatles changed this planet and music for the better, in my opinion. Now, nobody picked my favorite band, which was The Offspring, and I can't blame you for that. I also have a really bad Offspring tattoo on my left arm that I'm very embarrassed about, and one day, when I get enough money, I will fix it, I promise. But I was very surprised. No one likes The Offspring, huh? We only got really one pop punk band that I kind of grew up with. Only one person picked Blink-182, and big fan of Blink-182, and nobody picked Meatloaf. That was my favorite. That's one of my favorite artists as well. But I'd have to say that the winner was definitely the Beatles. And as far as favorite musicals go, everyone was kind of all over the place. A couple people actually picked my personal favorite musical, which is La La Land. I find that movie to be Damien Chazelle's second masterpiece. I've said it here on the channel before. I think Babylon is a masterpiece that we will learn to love as time goes on. I think it'll get more appreciated as time passes. But La La Land was very much loved at the time, and I feel like it's kind of starting to get forgotten about. Obviously, it had the controversy at the Academy Awards where they said La La Land won Best Picture, and then Moonlight actually won Best Picture. And if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say Moonlight did deserve to win Best Picture that year. But still, I feel like that kind of stained the love for La La Land. And I feel like people have to just go back and watch it. And I think you'll enjoy it a little bit more now. Like, as years have gone on and it's not being stuffed down your throat as much as it was at the time, I think you'll appreciate La La Land and its message, which is, you know, follow your dreams. And the music in that movie is just fantastic. But everyone had great choices as far as musicals. I'd still say that the winner was probably Grease, which isn't a surprise. That is one of the most famous musicals. I know 2 people in my life whose favorite film of all time is Grease. So Grease has definitely also stood the test of time almost 50 years later. But enough of me rambling on. Let's spin this magic wheel and see who our 2 lucky winners are. First wheel spin coming up. Austin Powers. All right, Austin, we're going to remove your name. Spin again. And the Blu-ray Hunter Searcher. So the first winner was Austin Powers. I think he just entered his first giveaway this week. I don't think that's the real Austin Powers though, but Austin Powers is one of our digital code giveaway winners. And then the Blu-ray Hunter Searcher, also a pretty new member to the channel. You guys get your choice of the digital codes that you've seen on your screen before you today. So just make sure you reach out to me at my email address, letstalkentmt@gmail.com. Or if you don't want to do that, you can always direct message me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter/X. Just let me know which of the digital codes you want. As long as the other winner didn't take that digital code is all yours. And if you did enter the digital code giveaway and for some odd reason your name wasn't on the magic wheel, the rule is you get a digital code as well. Just reach out to me and let me know, hey, John, you fucked up. You didn't put my name on the wheel. And I will make sure I fix that and send you a digital code of your choice as well. And if you didn't win this one, don't feel too bad. We do this every single week, so just make sure you come back to this Friday's video. It'll be labeled Digital Code Giveaway, and we will do this all over again. And I want to thank each and every single one of you for entering into the Digital Code Giveaway. This was by far the most names we've ever had on the wheel. I've been doing this Digital Code Giveaway since the beginning of the channel when we had like 5 or 6 names on it. So to see this wheel filling up each and every single week just warms my heart. I just love doing it, mainly just to talk to you guys and just talk to you guys about movies. That's the real reason I do this, is I get movie recommendations, and all you guys are always pretty damn cool. It's very rare we have an issue in the comment section as far as the Digital Code Giveaway and your opinions. Everyone is just so kind. You hear all those bad things about the internet and how everyone just has to let their opinion be known and they just want to fight about it. But I can honestly say, for the most part on this channel, we've never had those issues. Everybody has just been respectful. It's just really genuine, cool people, and I absolutely love that. That's the kind of community I wanted to create. I mean, we've even had people who are members of this community start their own channels, like The Original Fuzz or Stuart George's Home Movies. Like, all those people are awesome, and you should check out their channels too as well, especially if you're a fan of physical media, because they're both doing great work, and it just means the world to me. And thank you all so much. And if you want to continue to support this channel, nothing supports this channel out more than just by you simply liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and just getting out in those streets and telling your friends about us, and we'll be seeing you around.